I am here with Bill Nye, to some the science guy, to me just Bill.
Sure. Yes. Bill.
Bill, you have a brand new podcast out, Science Rules.
Yes. Turn it up loud, everybody.
Make it loud. Now, to be clear, this is my podcast here, so the tables have turned. Not literally. People can't see that at home. Actually, they could see it at home because we do have 4 cameras here.
Yeah. It's just when you're driving, you want 4 cameras.
You need 4 cameras. How many cameras do you have on your podcast?
We don't have any.
Do you feel, is that a flaw?
No, I feel it's kind of a strength. Radio is the most visual medium.
Again, you're airtight with your facts, Bill. Always. Thank you for coming out.
Facts.
Bill, do you consider yourself an activist?
Yeah, but I think anybody who's scientifically literate becomes an environmentalist, and I guess that makes you an activist.
How
but
so?
I don't chain myself to bulldozers and stuff like that.
Why not?
It seems time-consuming, and I'm involved in other aspects of the activism matrix.
On this show, we talk to a lot of people who consider themselves activists, who go out, they see something wrong with the world, they want to interact with it and change it in some way.
Well, I want to change the world, yeah. Does
Yes.
that make me an activist?
I don't know. I guess what is your definition of activist? Perhaps somebody who takes action to change the world. So,
Okay.
yeah, you do it without chaining yourself to.
But I do other stuff.
Well,
I mean, yeah. I do other things.
I don't want to make you feel defensive, but what do you do, Bill?
I go on to TV and talk about climate change.
Mm-hmm. What is the most effective way to enact change in climate?
Vote.
Vote.
Here's what I think happened. You went down to Louisiana, right?
I did.
And you met people who, at best, were ambivalent about the activism.
I met the whole panoply of people down in Louisiana.
Panoply.
Is that? I don't know if I use that correct.
You might have.
I was gonna say myriad, but I always get confused with myriad if it's a myriad or the myriad. So I said panoply, and I'm sticking with it.
You met different people.
I met different people in Louisiana.
People with different points of view.
That's what I met in Louisiana. I met people who would consider themselves activists, who do lock themselves to pipelines to try to stop it from taking place. I met activists, people who go by the rules, who go out into the bayou, they take notes, they file complaints through the local governments to try to enact change. And then I met people who were like, these people should just get out of here because they don't understand how the economy works down here. And there was sort of an inherent fight between all 3 groups. Overall, most people wanted change, wanted the betterment of that area. I can't say anybody figured out exactly the best way to get that.
Well, here's the thing. People say to me, Bill, Nye, what can I do? What can I do about climate change? What can an individual do? And we all want to feel empowered somehow. We all want to do something. But as I say all the time, climate change isn't a case of just recycling water bottles or driving a hybrid car. We need big changes. We need major changes. The word sweeping comes to mind. But for that, it's going to take voting and putting people in government who are willing to address the problem being climate change. So as I say, there's 3 things we want for everybody in the world. Clean water, renewably produced electricity that's reliable, and access to the internet for everybody in the world. And to do that, it's going to take not burning fossil fuels to make electricity, but getting it some other way. When we talk about energy, we're talking about electricity. Electricity is magical. You can have a podcast, fancy microphones,
And
4 cameras,
only the best.
or you can make toast with electricity. It's amazing.
I wouldn't put those on an equal playing field. There's a lot of people who are working here on what they would consider as more productive than toast.
Okay, I'm open-minded. But I'll bet you there's a lot more toast slices cooked than there are podcast casts.
Actually, I don't even know. For every improviser, there's 17 podcasts.
All right, so that aside, this is going to take huge changes, and it's going to just technically, from an engineering standpoint, we're going to have to stop having our electricity production concentrated as strongly as it is now and have it distributed. Solar panels on top of every Walmart. And then we need an electrical grid that can move electricity around the way we move mobile phone calls around, cell phones. And so this is doable. but it's going to require investment. Investment? What do you want people to pay taxes? Yes. Yes. So my parents were both veterans of World War II. I talk about this all the time, and here's another example of when I'm talking about it. And they had a global problem. They got her done in 5 years at great sacrifice, and people paid taxes, and they made tanks and airplanes, and people went to war and died for the betterment of humankind. I'm not saying we have to go to war and die over climate change, but we have to invest. This is not extraordinary. And by the way, we are in the U.S. conducting this in U.S. accented English. The U.S. is the world's third most populous country. China, India, which will probably reverse into India, China, and then the United States. There's a third of a billion people. So why should we have a libertarian or small government? What are you talking about? There's 300 plus million people that are all trying to drive and burn gasoline and whatever else they're doing.
Well, you bring up World War II. What's different between now and World War II is it felt like, at least the stories I hear, you have the bad guy Nazis, which was easy for Americans to come together.
Well, everybody, yeah.
Everybody can come together.
Yes.
For some reason, we feel so fractured right now that the idea of the end of life on the horizon isn't enough to pull us all together.
Well, the trouble is it's slow motion. We didn't have a Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. We don't have a 9/11. And so the climate change is a much more subtle and slow-moving problem, but the consequences are actually, I think you can reckon them to be much larger because it will affect 7.5 billion people, not a few hundred million.
Well, so and you are often described as a communicator. I like to put you on par with like the great communicator, like Barack Obama.
Oh yeah, ways. Bill Nye, Barack Obama, sure, 6 of 1.
Yeah, 6.
And the same people hate us both.
So if we need a Pearl Harbor to draw people's attention to this global crisis, as somebody who is attempting to communicate this to people, attempting to get people's attention, I talk to a lot of other folks in the entertainment industry, in many different industries, who are trying to wave the flag, sound the alarm, get people to pay attention.
The climate change flag.
The climate change flag.
Or if there were one. Yes.
The recyclable, the renewable.
Recycle's good.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Like how do you send up that flag?
Well, here's what we're pointing out right now. Suppose you had Hurricane Michael,
we had Irene.
Irene, yeah. Mm-hmm. And you talk to anybody from New Orleans, Katrina is still this thing. Okay, suppose we had all these storms and we had no explanation for it. Suppose we had all these droughts in California, then these heavy rains causing flooding, mudslides. Suppose we had a blizzard in the Midwest in late April and we didn't know why it was happening. That would be really troubling, but we do know why it's happening. There's more heat energy in the atmosphere, so the atmosphere is more turbulent and you get bigger storms, more frequent and stronger storms.
You talk a lot about curiosity, how important that is for
I was wondering about that.
I'm very curious about your interest in curiosity. But do we have a death of curiosity right now?
We have a weird anti-science movement, and it's enabled by... first of all, it really, just to point fingers, it started with the fossil fuel industry, where they were very successful in introducing the idea that scientific uncertainty about climate change, or the role of carbon dioxide and methane, was the scientific uncertainty about the exact effects, plus or minus 2%, was the same as plus or minus 100%, plus or minus doubt about everything. And that's just absolutely wrong. And then the internet, for better or for worse, has enabled everybody to sound about the same. And people, we all look for easy answers. So denying it is much easier than getting to work on it. Mm-hmm. Especially since I keep saying, recycling bottles is good, that's good. Driving less or more efficiently is good. But we need big, huge wind turbines.
It's like a monster truck rally.
Well, yeah, much bigger than that. And
larger than a monster truck
why
rally?
Not have? And so if I may, I'm not changing the subject, if I may whine and complain, NASCAR celebrates this 80-year-old technology. What do you do? What? Horse racing's cool, I guess. But you don't take a horse to work, and very, very few people take a horse to work anymore. So then more about me. My grandfather was in World War I on a horse. He rode a horse at night and put chlorine in the Lister bags in the canteens, and to prevent dysentery, or do his best to prevent dysentery. But 25 years later, during people fighting World War II, they weren't riding horses. The transportation system was revolutionized in a couple decades. We can do this, people. Electric cars don't know where the electrons come from.
Now, do you, as somebody who,
if the electricity is produced renewably, the cars are of great benefit. If their electrons are produced by burning fossil fuel, the benefit is smaller, but it's nevertheless a little benefit because you're not spreading the pollution out everywhere.
There is a history of us evolving and to getting to a better place where we can adapt to the times. But as you just said, what we have right now is the internet. We have the ability for all voices to be elevated. Are you an optimist when you look at something like that as an enabler for change?
You have freedom of speech. We have freedom of speech, but you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. There's some rules. So the internet's going to get regulated, I think, soon enough. You just can't publish any crazy thing loudly to everybody. And it sounds, I'm sorry, people. That's just what's coming because we had all this trouble without regulation, And so, if you're a broadcaster on conventional television or publishing a newspaper, you can't print just anything. We have libel laws, we have slander. So we'll do the same thing with the internet. Slowly, ever so slowly, there'll be trusted sources. And the dark web will continue to web its darkness. But we can fix this. But the sooner the better.
Yeah, what's our timeline here?
Well, when you talk about climate change, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, says, 12 years. Okay. But everybody, the Earth's going to be here no matter what we do. So what we want to do is preserve the Earth for us, for humans. And the other strange thing, these people have so much trouble understanding, it's not that the Earth used to have more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in the ancient dinosaur days. It's the speed at which we're adding carbon dioxide. This is not rocket surgery, people. Look at the graph. We have gone from 280 parts per million to over 400 parts per million in just 2 centuries, rather than 2 millennia. Or 10 millennia. We're doing it in 10 years. For crying out loud. Let's go, people. Let's get to work.
So to make it about me.
Good.
My experience in seeing these people who are camping out, who feel this is such a dire situation that they want to go and lock themselves to a pipeline. What do you say to people like that? Do you see that as effective protest? Is that an inspiring move, or is that wasted energy?
Well, does it prevent the pipeline?
No. Yeah. I think it creates noise. I think it delays potentially the inevitable. Yes.
So maybe that's good.
There is potential energy in there.
From both ends, yeah. But the most effective thing would just be to have the climate change deniers age out, as the saying goes. Very few climate change deniers are young.
Not the cool thing.
Well, you guys grew up with facts. When the old people are no longer voting or no longer running the government, everything's going to change. But will it happen fast enough to preserve quality of life for billions of people? We'll see.
So in the end, pray for death.
There's a lot of evidence to suggest that you're going to die, Jordan. I don't want to shock you.
Please don't share any of that with me.
There's no hurry. There's no hurry. And they say, my dad always said, don't miss weddings or funerals. But you probably miss your own funeral, probably.
I hope not. I like to show up for everything.
There are people that make extraordinary claims that you don't miss your own funeral, but I'm not counting on it. But I digress only a little bit. Young people are going to make these changes. They're going to get it done. But will they get it done quickly? That's the question. If you're in Bangladesh and you're displaced, and then there's a drought in Africa, and then it's just, the U.S. military has written extensively about the problems associated with displaced populations as the climate changes faster than we're used to.
For people who are listening at home or who are watching on YouTube, or when this thing gets dictated and put down into a novel and are reading it in their novel.
Mm-hmm. Wow, people have trouble sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. That's our target demo right now. What is the thing they can do if they're listening to this? They're angry, they're frustrated, they want change. They can vote.
vote and support candidates that are going to do something about climate change.
Science rules.
Science rules.
What are you talking about with science rules?
Everything that has to do with science, which is everything. So we have, we've got a few in the can. That's podcast talk. We have neuroscientists talking about the nature of consciousness. We have a nuclear weapons expert talking about what we should do with nuclear material, and is it vulnerable to? Are we ready for the dirty bomb? No. We have genetically modified foods. A guy from Monsanto.
Oh God.
And then why people live to be over 100. We have that guy on.
Wait, there's a guy?
Yeah,
he knows?
he's the guy. Yeah, near Barzillai. He's a cool guy, and he studies people who live to be extraordinarily old.
And what has he found?
Fasting seems to be the trick. And the word fasting, not extreme fasting, just skipping a meal, like 16 hours without eating.
That's it?
Well, and being happy.
Oh, well,
But
I thought it was easy.
Yeah, well, not for you, no. But, I mean, you're just a miserable, jaded
Bill, let's
man.
not get into this now, for
Well,
God's
I
sake.
feel it,
You
man.
can,
I'm the
I'm
same
exuding
way.
it right now.
No, both of
I
us.
haven't eaten in 16 hours.
Both of us. Well, that's going to, you're going to extend your life.
But it's making me so unhappy.